Now let's turn to a warning Nigerian youths cannot afford to ignore, and one that remains dangerously underreported in this country. Across Nigeria, young men are reportedly being lured with promises of dollar salaries, visas, and an escape from economic hardship. A CNN investigation shows that for many, those offers have led not to opportunity, but to the front lines of the war in Ukraine. You recruited through social media and private messages. Several Africans say they were promised civilian jobs only to be forced into military service, stripped of their passports, and pushed towards combat with little or no training. As pressure mounts on young Nigerians, it's leading to urgent questions about whether this country's youths are being quietly funneled into a foreign war, while the country barely talks about it. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the director of Connect Hub NG, Rinu Oduala. She is a civic leader and a youth advocate who's been sounding the alarm about the quiet recruitment of Nigerian youths into the war in Ukraine. Thank you very much indeed, Rinu, for joining us. You've been writing urgently about young Nigerians being lured into the Russia-Ukraine war. Tell us more about this issue and what convinced you that this was no longer a distant foreign issue, but a Nigerian problem.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Nigerians. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much. I think that this issue is very pertinent, and especially as it's happening now. What convinced me, just like you asked, that this issue was not foreign is like Nigerians have been pulled into it. Over the past year, if you read the news, if you do like some research on youth recruitment, scholarships, and all of that, we have seen like a quiet and growing patterns where young Nigerians, and not just Nigerians, Ghanaians, South Africans, Kenyans, people in other countries, Zambia, Zimbabwe, they're being approached by agents through job offers. They will offer them like jobs, for example, work in Europe and get £7,000 per month. You know, it could be study opportunities, study in Europe, and you would get free scholarships, free flight, free accommodation in your school, and travel promises that often sound like legitimate on the surface. They're like security roles. Sometimes it's factory work. Sometimes it's technical training. Sometimes they're even promised like pathways to citizenship. But then what many people who have gone through these offers and have accepted them discovered that when they arrive, these civilian jobs or the scholarships never exist. They are often pressured and forced into military contracts that they do not understand, without lawyers, without translation, and with very little choice, because then they've left Nigeria or they've left the African country and they've gotten there. And then families in Africa, start to get like frantic calls. Mothers cannot locate their sons. People are disappearing into war zones, thousands of kilometers away, fighting a war that they did not intend to join. And just like you said, with the CNN reporting and other reporting that Reuters, Bloomberg, African men are now being sent to the front line with minimal training. They are facing racism. Some of them are not being paid their wages, and they are dying at the front lines of the war.
Right.
Some of them are even being told that no, you're not going to join the military, but many of them are now saying that that's not simply true. And for Nigeria, that matters because we have this huge youth population that is navigating unemployment, insecurity, and economic pressure at home.
Well, I'm gonna come to that issue because that's a very important issue you raised there about unemployment. But in terms of the people who have gone there, what do we know about the survival rate? Because we understand that some Nigerians have actually been killed in Ukraine.
What we know about the survival rate is tricky, because then we have to wait for these people to report. Many of the people who go there never tell anybody. They just tell them. Again, it's a tricky thing because they are being lured. We don't have precise numbers, and that uncertainty is part of the problem, because many of these recruits are not even officially documented as foreign fighters. Just like I said, they arrive on like work visas or student visas, and then they are absorbed into the military unit quietly. And when they are injured or killed, the families often find out late or even not at all. CNN has done a great work, and you can, if you watch the video that Larry Madowo recently released yesterday, you will see that most of these Africans that are being deployed, they are often deployed in high-risk zones, and they are used like as expendable manpower. They are sent into like drone-heavy zones where the casualty rates are extremely high. There are documented cases of Africans being killed by drones, being killed by military artillery within weeks of being deployment. Many others have gone missing entirely. Their families back home will receive no official communication. There are no clear death certificates. There's no, what do we call it, repatriation of bodies. It's just silence, or maybe a fellow recruit, sends a message to them. So this tells us two things: that the survival rate is far lower than what we know. And then often, sometimes survival does not even mean safety, because those who make it back home are carrying like trauma and injuries and long-term health problems without no compensation
Right.
and no support. So parents right now in Nigeria, or even in other African countries, they're sending their parent abroad, or, telling them, yeah, you can go because it's scholarship or a job visa. They are thinking that they're going to work or study, but
Right.
they're entering one of the most lethal war zones in the world right now.
So, I mean, how much of this problem is about Russian tactics and how much is about Nigeria failing to provide dignity, opportunity, and hope at home? I mean, what does it say about a country when its young citizens are willing to fight someone else's war just to feel economically visible?
Yeah, I wrote about this in an op-ed about 2 weeks ago, because then that what you just said was in fact what I wrote. That's a very question, and I think that the honest answer is both of them. You can't separate the two. On one side, there are deliberate tactics. These recruitment networks, these agents, they know exactly what they're doing. They target places with like high youth unemployment, and they are putting the offer in like there's good pay if you have skills. We're going to give you travel. We're going to use citizenship. They're using social media influencers. They're using people who have already gone to make it normal, and that part is intentional. But those things, just like you said, only work because of what is happening at home. Young Nigerians are working, they're going to school, and that education is not translating into work. Their efforts to go to work every day is not translating into stability. So people are now taking risks that they would not even otherwise consider. Fighting in a foreign war, even for Nigerians, the largest with the largest youth population on the continent, should be unthinkable. The fact that some Nigerians, some young Nigerians now see it as option, tell us something painful about desperation.
Right.
That, our dignity is not available at home. So we're now being seen as useful, being paid, being able to send money home, even if the cost is extreme. And that's not a failure on the part of the youth, it's a systems failure. And at the same time, we should be careful not to frame this as young Nigerians choosing war. Many of them did not choose it. Many of them were misled. So it's both ways. It's about
Right.
recruitment tactics. It's also about when a country does not offer enough pathways for its young people to feel economically visible, valued, and safe. So if we want the problem to stop, we have to do two things. First, call out the tactics, and then at home we have to rebuild trust by with
Well, I was
opportunities
going
and
to.
protecting our young people from
I,
exploitation.
I was going to come in there and ask you, what responsibility does the Nigerian government bear in protecting its citizens from foreign military recruitment, especially online? I mean, are Nigerian embassies, immigration systems, security agencies even tracking this phenomenon? I mean, do you know?
At this point, I'm very, very cautious, and at the same time, I call out the Nigerian government. I think that the Nigerian government has failed, and I think that I don't know if the Nigerian government recognizes its responsibility here, because then you first have to accept that it's happening. In 2024 or early 2025, and I know that you know this, the Nigerian Ministry of Education itself put up a flyer on its website and on social media, recruiting people to Russia, saying that, you can go there, vague offers, just like we're discussing here. And it was particularly disturbing because then this is not even coming from agents. This is coming directly from the ministry, on official channel, on official platform in Nigeria, the Ministry of Education. And later, they pulled down the flyer and said, we were hacked, or they gave one excuse or the other. So you first have to accept that this is happening. And I think that if you look at the pattern, even across African governments, the high-ranking officials that are colluding, with these agents to also recruit youth from their country, and I'm very sure that they are being paid. So there has to be a responsibility to first see and track the problem carefully. Right now, a lot of this recruitment is happening in gray zones, some even boldly happening on our own ministries' platforms. And if the state is not actively monitoring these spaces or even accepting that this is false, then young people are being young Nigerians are being left alone to navigate something that is deliberately designed to deceive them. And that's a gap. Secondly, there's a consular and immigration responsibility. When Nigerians leave this country under the impression that they are going for work or study and end up in military units, our embassies cannot be learning about it from the families or journalists. There has to be stronger follow-up, registration and welfare tracking for Nigerians abroad, especially in high-risk destination like Russia, like Ukraine. Families should not be left to be chasing rumors when something goes wrong. Thirdly, there's a security responsibility, like you said. The foreign military recruitment of citizens across Africa is not a labor issue or just a labor issue. It's a national security issue because people who are coming back from war zones are coming back with injuries, they're coming back with trauma, they're coming back with military training. Without any integration framework, you cannot integrate somebody who has gone to the front lines of the war back into the society without any framework. So ignoring that reality is risky, both for the people who are coming back and for the people who are at home.
Right.
And fourthly, and this is crucial, the government has a responsibility to protect its own credibility online, just like I said with the Ministry of Education platform. When a government website is endorsing something, the young people will trust it. And so securing those systems is part of safeguarding the youth. And there's a responsibility that goes beyond enforcement, communication. Young Nigerians need clear and repeated warning in plain language. What did this offer look like? What are the risks? What to do if you or someone you know is being approached? Because silence will leave space for recruiters to fill. So this is about a lot more. And it's also about the state, Nigerian state, signaling that Nigerians' life matter enough to be actively protected.
Well, you made a lot of points there, but in fairness to the Nigerian missions abroad, I mean, often they have to depend on people to come and register. They often say that if you're a Nigerian citizen and you get into a country, it is your responsibility to come and register with them. I mean, the British Embassy does the same thing, High Commission does the same thing in Nigeria, as well as the Americans. But to some extent, it's a voluntary thing. You can't really put a gun to somebody's head and say they must register. But you've chosen writing and advocacy as your weapon. As briefly as you can, because we're almost out of time, what kind of message actually cuts through the noise for young Nigerians?
I think that, thank you, and thank you very much for that. I think that for young Nigerians, the fact that there are not a lot of economic opportunities at home doesn't mean that we are expendable, doesn't mean that our lives are expendable. In another country's war, our lives are not battle fodder, for another foreign government to use us as the front lines, food for for their own war that is happening, whether in Russia, whether in Ukraine or anything. The message that I would pass is that many of these offers that you're seeing, they're not what they claim to be. And then when you're inside, living is extremely difficult. The money is not paid as promised. The contracts are not explained. People have been injured. People have disappeared. People have been killed, and their families are left, chasing answers. I know that we are trying to survive, but your life has to be worth more than any offer that is hiding the true cost. So no job, no passport, no fast money is worth being trapped in a war that you did not choose. And we have to be practical. You have to verify the offers. You have to encourage people to talk to families before the travel, because tell them that if an offer is pressuring you to move fast, sign these documents. Don't reach out to lawyers, and that's a red flag. Just like you said, writing and advocacy work, because they humanize the issue. They're turning statistics into face and names, and that's what breaks through. We have to communicate to young Nigerians again, because many of these offers seem nice, seem like really exciting. £7,000, even to me, if I hear it for the first time, I'm like, yeah, let's go. But your life is worth more than any offer that is hiding the true cost, especially if it's linking to these locations that are in high risk and war zones. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rinu, for bringing this issue to national attention. I think it's just an extraordinary piece of work that you've done there. Rinu Oduala is the director of Connect Hub NG. She's a civic leader and youth advocate who's been sounding the alarm about the quiet recruitment of Nigerian youths into the war in Ukraine. And she was talking to me on the line there from London. Thank you very much indeed.